Today we are talking with Bill Palmer in his Cups and Ball Museum. This is quite an unusual place you got here, and you've been obviously collecting for quite some time then, Bill. How long have you been collecting cups and balls?
Well, my earliest set goes back to when I was in high school, and that would be pre-1960, so you can do the math if you'd like. I'd rather you didn't, but I've been accumulating cups for a long time. This is actually my second collection. I started off with a collection, I want to say about 10 years ago. I had a collection of about 60 sets, and I sold all but about a dozen sets to Keena Thompson. I kept the best ones. I kept a set of Palafox Cups, and I kept the Stubby Cups, which is the oldest set that I have, and I kept a few Chop Cups and so forth. But it's taken me quite a while to get all of the cups that I originally had back. I'm still missing one set.
Why did you sell off the cups to begin with?
I don't know. I just wasn't doing anything with them.
And then all of a sudden you decided, I really miss them and I want to go back and start collecting again, I guess.
Something like that. It was. There's a mystique about the cups and balls. You know, it's just one of the oldest tricks in the world. It goes back probably to the ancient Egyptians, although we can't really verify that positively.
That tomb of Corfu, I guess it could be they were baking bread or something.
It could be that they're baking bread, could be that they're working with pottery. I do have an Egyptologist who is checking this for me. He has the inscriptions, and he's going to be finding the material, and he's going to translate it for me, and then we'll know whether it says Ken Klosterman's bread is cheaper than the Pharaoh's, or whether it says that these guys are making pottery.
Right. Now we got some cups and balls that are right here. This is kind of a unusual, looks like handmade set.
Well, it's hand hammered. I assume that they spin the cups as they would the normal way, and then they use a hammered finish. And they also have a Quetzalcoatl engraved around the base of them.
And the Quetzalcoatl is?
The Quetzalcoatl is one of the folkloric symbols of Mexico. It's a feathered serpent. You'll see this on a lot of their old coins. Yes. Those of you who have an old Scotch and soda will see a Quetzalcoatl on the back side of it. That's that funny looking snake that no one seems to know what it is, but now you do.
Okay. Beautiful set then you got over here. So, but you've got hundreds and hundreds of sets of cups and balls.
Over 600 sets.
Now, Bob Reed, you had quite a collection, I guess, also. Didn't he collect mainly posters and paintings and
Bob collected
graphics.
That's the generic term for it. He didn't have many sets of cups. He may have had a dozen sets. I've only seen actually 3 sets in his collection. One was a set that belonged to Hofzinser that he got from Ottokar Fischer, and we had some other sets that were rather interesting. But as far as having a large collection, he didn't. He went in one direction. I went in another.
Right. Did you end up happening to get any of his collection at all?
Well, his collection hasn't been liquidated yet, so it's still with Pauline, as far as I know.
Okay. So again, when you first got started with collecting the cups and balls, and we'll take a look through the museum here shortly, what did your wife say?
Well, actually, it was kind of collecting by default. A lot of people ask, how did you get into collecting cups and balls? It was very simple. We had this large harpsichord here that belonged to my father. When we put it in there, I said, we need something on the back wall here. I'd like a moose head. And she said, anything but a moose head. So I said, how about cups and balls? And she said, well, they're shiny and they look fairly nice and they don't look as ugly as a moose head. Of course, there's a lot of things that don't look as ugly as a moose head. And so that was part of the way that I got into it. But the rest of it was just going to various places and seeing cups and other things that were peculiar to that region. Mm-hmm. One of the first sets that I got was a set that Tom Frank had issued that was basically a version of the Charlie Miller Ross Bertram Cup. They're called the Phoenix Cups. And I picked these up in Kansas City, or actually in Leawood at U.S. Toy Magic, when I was on the road with Ted Leslie. And those were fairly interesting cups, although they weren't necessarily the best cups in the collection. And then after that, I decided I wanted some of the Sherwood Cups. And I got all of the basic Sherwood Cups. I have one of his Chop Cups. That was a difficult project for the master. But you see a cup and you say, well, I've got to have one of those for the collection. One person who's supplied me with a lot of stuff is Alke van Dokkum, the Dutch machinist. I have several of his sets. In fact, I've named some of the sets for him. I named his Monster Cups, which we'll see later, and his Micro Cups, which are basically the largest and smallest cups that are manufactured specifically for that purpose. Now, the number that I quoted you for cups, it covers all sorts of cups. It covers cups from magic sets, which are usually fairly cheap, and it covers what I call found cups. These are cups that you go into a store and you say, you know, if I got 3 of those and some balls that would fit, these would be good for the cups and balls.
Right.
There's about, I'd say, 50 sets of those in the collection. And then there's also shell games, because the shell game is a very close relative to the cups and balls.
Good point. Right. Let me go back just a little bit then first as far as what your interest is in magic, and kind of, I know you've been doing it most all of your life, if not indeed all of your life. So just kind of a brief rundown as far as getting interested in magic and what you've done, I know, as being Merlin the Wizard, the Wily Wizard, for the Renaissance Festival for a long number of years. But
Well, I started off with an interest when I was about, I want to say about 8 years old. My dad took me to see Harry Blackstone. Now this was
Senior.
Harry Senior, yes. And he did the Vanishing Birdcage. Now when Harry, pardon me, when Harry Senior did the Vanishing Birdcage, instead of having 4 people up on stage with him, or 5 people, or 6 people like Junior did, he had kids all the way down to the end of the stage. He'd ask for children to come up,
As many as
they could, because he made it look like a huge trick that way. He'd have maybe 40 kids on the stage with him,
Right.
20 on each side.
Fun.
I was the last kid on stage left when he performed in Houston. And I was just enthralled with what I saw him do. But the birdcage is the one that really got me. So I told myself, you know, if you ever grow up to be a magician, learn how to do that. Well, I did. It became one of my signature tricks at the Renaissance Festival. And it was kind of funny because I ran into Harry Jr. many times after that, and I told him about his dad inspiring me to become a magician. So when he was playing at the Laugh Stop in Houston, some of the guys who had seen me at the Renaissance Festival were out there the night that I went to see Harry perform. But they didn't recognize me because I was dressed as I normally dress, like this, not wearing the Merlin outfit. So I was talking to Harry, and one of my fans came over and said to Harry, he said, Mr. Blackstone, how did you get interested in magic? And without even missing a beat, Harry said, well, I was at a Renaissance festival one afternoon. I saw this fellow dressed as Merlin the Magician do the Vanishing Birdcage. And I told myself that if I ever grew up to be a magician, I would learn how to do that trick. And there were some guys there that knew who I was, and they were going, but not loud enough for my friends to hear. And then later on, I told them the rest of the story. But that was the way Harry was. He loved to pull a prank, and he could pull a prank absolutely straight-faced with the best of them.
very funny, very funny. Well, you have anything else to add, or shall we go ahead and start taking a
I
walk
could say a
through-
little bit about what I have done in magic. I was out of magic for a while. I did magic up through my high school years, and then when I went to college, I went to Rice University, which is a fairly tough school, and I gave up magic almost completely. I sold most of my props. I still kept my old cups, and for about a dozen years I didn't do any magic. Then I got interested again. Magic is a lot like dope. Only it's legal in most places. There still should be some laws against performing it when you're not supposed to, but that's another story. But I was watching the Kreskin show one day, and I realized that he was doing the same stuff I used to sell at Howard's. I said, I could do that.
Howard's Fun Shop.
Yes,
in Houston.
right, Howard's Fun Shop. And so I said, I could do that. That's that same stuff. So I got interested in mentalism, and I have a fairly large library of mental stuff. And one of the things that struck me when I was doing my basic work on mentalism was a fellow from Germany named Punks, who was written up in Corinda. There were 2 items from him in there. I said, I'm going to meet this guy one day. Prophetic words, because a few years later, I was asked to translate 3 of Punks's books into English, and that's what got me pretty well on the map as an English translator, or German to English translator. And that's how I ended up translating Paramiracles for Ted Leslie, and how I ended up translating the Borodin books for Wolf Bowling, Borodin. And that's the other thing I do. But about 3 years after I got back into magic, the Texas Renaissance Festival started. A friend of mine said, "Hey, there's going to be a Renaissance Festival in Magnolia." What's that? Well, they dress up in tights and stuff, and they talk with a British accent. Why don't you get your wife to make you a Merlin outfit, and you can be Merlin the Magician? And if it hadn't been for Greg Harbor's suggestion that I do that, I would have never done Merlin the Magician at the Texas Renaissance Festival. It would have been an entirely different thing for me. So that's what I did. And at the Renaissance Festival, I did everything from close-up to very large illusions.
For how many years?
For 26 years.
26 years. Yes, you become synonymous with Merlin, certainly. Now, did you ever travel to other Renaissance festivals around?
Yes, I did. I worked Scarborough Fair, and it was at Scarborough Fair that I met Gazzo. I have two
Scarborough
sets.
Fair is in near Waco, Texas.
Near Waxahachie.
Waxahachie,
Yes.
near Dallas, Texas.
And I have the set of cups he performed the cups and balls with out there. One of the things that I've done at the museum is I've tried to preserve cups that belong to famous people. I have cups that belong to the great Leon. I have cups that belong to Gazzo. I have cups that belong to David Roth. I have cups that belong to Mel Stover, and those cups also belong to James Seelan. And I have a set of cups that Danny Dew actually performed with for a while. So I've tried to preserve these. Even have cups that belong to Tom Palmer, a.k.a. Tony Andruzzi.
Tony Andruzzi, right.
So that's part of what I'm doing. I'm trying not to just accumulate large quantities of cups, but to get some quality items and some things that
Are
have
meaningful.
a story to them, have some
Historical.
meaning to them. Yes.
And you've been posting these on the internet too, on cupsandballsmuseum.com?
Yes, I have a website. It's www.cupsandballsmuseum.com. And if you go to that website, it will tell you how to get a password. It is password protected. And that's because of a problem I had with Wikipedia. And if you want to know more about that, you can email me and I'll tell you all about it.
All right. Well, that sounds fascinating. I know that you've always been a Renaissance man to me. I mean, not just working the Renaissance Fair, no pun intended certainly, but by being able to play the harpsichord, and I know bluegrass music is something, and banjo playing is something that's near and dear to your heart, as well as magic and making props and being a woodworker and everything else that you do, as well as collecting and translating from German to English and other languages that you speak then as well. You've just been a role model to a lot of us, I believe.
Well, thank you very much. I try to be kind.
And indeed you are. Well, I'm anxious to take a look through the museum. Do you mind giving us a little tour?
Oh, be glad to.
Great, let's
All
do
right.
that. All right, what do we got here first then, Bill?
Well, this is the area that I would call the treasures of the collection. Most of the rare pieces are in here. Up on the top shelf, these are miniature cups. Miniature cups are usually less than, say, 2.5 inches tall. And they'll take a small load ball, like some will take as big as a golf ball or maybe even a small racket ball. These little tiny ones here by Riley are probably the smallest ever manufactured. They're just barely an inch tall. And there's also some sets that were converted from jewelry. For instance, these two sets up here were obviously converted from some silver shot glasses, probably French. Now down here are the Sherwood Cups. Right here there's 8 different sets. There's brass, silver that's gold plated on the inside. There's a gold plated set, copper, gold plated engraved, gold and silver engraved, and silver engraved. And over here are the cups from House of Magic. They're silver, some engraved, some not. Large and small cups. Pardon me. Over here, these are magic set cups. Most of them are French magic set cups. You see the characteristic French style with the abrupt shoulder there. This was a type of shoulder bead that was very popular with street performers, and a type of cup they liked a lot. That set of cups there looks like it doesn't fit, but I'm quite fond of it. Those belong to Jean de Jean. Now, over here are P&L cups. One of these sets, I believe this one right here, belongs to Mike Rogers, and then this set here belongs to the great Leon, who was an illusionist that worked out of California. This set right here, let me open the door here. This set is the set that I've had the longest. This is a set of stubby cups by Tannins. They will take a tennis ball as a final load. That patina is natural. It just happened from use and from being in Houston. You know, we have a kind of atmosphere that will put a patina on anything. And of course, these are the Ross Bertram cups. These are the genuine article. You can there's an RB hallmark inside. You probably can't get that with a camera, but we can try anyway.
Well, if I get a little bit more light, let me see.
There we are. Well, anyway, these things have just accelerated value like crazy. When I got these, they were roughly about $500 to $600 a set. Now they're going for almost $2,000. Now you don't do this. You don't do this. This will only go open about this far. So, okay. All of these are cups by Rings and Things. That battered set over to the side is a set that Richard Turner used to use. Then down here we have some Ireland cups, which were designed by Laurie Ireland. This is an original. That's one of the things about cups and balls. Gravity always remains in effect. This is an original Al Wheatley chop cup. This is made of bamboo, and these were quite popular for a while, but they had a tendency to split. Then he came out with this one here. This was called the Master Cup. It was made of spun aluminum. Ken Brooke did a version of it that was just a little different. So here's collector's hint number one. This has a thicker bottom. You can see the difference in the edge there. This is almost a quarter of an inch thick at the edge.
Okay.
This one is thinner here. Ken Brooke came out with a copy of it. This is the original Master Cup here. Ken Brooke made these that have just a slightly deeper bottom to them. You can see that right there. They're very close though in size. Also the Ken Brooke cup is a little taller. So watch out. Actually these are quite difficult to obtain. So either way, you're not going to get a bad cup if you get either one of them. Now, an interesting thing happened with the chop cup. Don Allen was booked to go on the Ed Sullivan Show. And he had a little problem. He didn't like the depth of his cup. So he took his cup like this out to the garage and he hacked an inch off the bottom of it with a hacksaw. So he ended up with a cup this big, but with no rolled edge. Well, the next day people walked into the magic shops all over the country and said, I want to buy one of those cups like Don Allen has. They'd sell him this. No, I want the professional one, you know, the short one. So Al Wheatley was forced by that to make what they call the Master Cup Jr. So this became the standard chop cup, and it was used and sold for many years. After that, then Mike Brazel designed the Don Allen chop cup, which you see right here. Now Don actually didn't use these very often. He only used them at magic conventions and places where Mike Brazel actually was. But I do have one of these that was used by Don. It's back in the back over here, and it came with a letter of provenance from his family. But anyway, that's the Don Allen chop cup. Down here we have Palafox Cups. Now all of these on this shelf were made for Danny Dew by one of three spinners, by either Marshall or Perigee or by Rings and Things. Now, I'll close the case so you can get a good shot of all of them. You don't get that bar in the way there. Some of these belong to, well, there's a silver set back here that belonged to Bill Malone, and one of these sets down here belonged to Danny Dew. One belonged to James Seelan. But there's 15 sets of cups that were made by Danny Dew here, or for Danny Dew. These over here were done by Jeff Busby. These were CNC machined. The rest of them were spun. These are the Connie Hayden cups. If you see a set of silver Palafox cups that are just a little bit too small to be real Palafox cups, they may be Connie Hayden cups. Those are very rare. And then down at the bottom we have various jumbo cups and so forth. But these are all very difficult to find, difficult to obtain, and highly collectible cups.
All right, let's go into the museum itself.
Okay. Over here we have some dice cups and various cups made of wood up at the top. These are leather and wood. Then down here are cups made by Morrissey in Canada. They still make some very nice cups. Here are just some miscellaneous cups. And then these are cups by various makers. This is a Tim Star cup. Kozak uses one like this. And these are cups by El Duco. This is a rarity. It should probably be in the other case. These are the National Water Cups. The National Water Cups are so called because they carry a water load. They're actually latas, 3 latas. They were not really very popular, though, with workers because they had a tendency to slip out of your hand. They were quite heavy and quite unwieldy. Down here are more leather and wood cups. There's a set that was donated by Borodin as a chop cup. And then over here are some cups from Ravel and Goshman. They made some very nice cups for a while. And coming into the main room, this is where you begin to see some of the interesting items. Up here on the top we have old style cups. Now I'll go through what these are. The ones on the far left, those are actually coconut shells. There's some conjecture as to the idea that maybe some of the early cup workers did use coconut shells. Next to them are some replicas of a pair of cups from Mycenae called the Vaffio cups. You can see photographs of these in museums. They're perfect for doing cups and balls. Next to that is what they call a bell Beaker Cup. Now let me get up on my stool and I'll show you this. It's a footstool. This cup, this is the kind of cup that you would find in the graves in Hallstatt, where the Neanderthals were. This is a reproduction of one that was given to me when I lectured in Augsburg, because they had a big deposit of those in that area. Next to those are the acetabula. This is the kind of cup that the early Roman cups and balls workers used. They would use 3 of these and they'd either perform on the ground or on a low stool. Because of the shape and size, it would be difficult to do any kind of the modern nesting moves, so we figured that their routines were probably similar to the ones used with the Indian cups and balls. When Hocus-Pocus Jr. came out in 1634, it had the first complete cups and balls routine in it, and the cups that were in the picture there look very much like this one. You notice there's a rolled bead here, and then there's a recess at the top. That's very important. It says in the text that the bottom must be set in a bit so that the balls don't roll off of it. That's a very important feature. Got these in 3 sizes. Now in roughly 1710, they introduced the shoulder bead. This is the shoulder bead. This is what keeps the cups from jamming together. These cups look very similar to the cups that Conus used. I have these in 2 different sizes. These are from Germany and those up there are from Turkey. Then we have all of these Indian style cups here. These are by Tayati, most of them. This set of cups here belonged to Tony Andruzzi, also known as Tom Palmer. No relation, but we got a lot of miles out of the gag. Now, down here we have just various cups. This is the kind of cup that you would see people using on the streets in France. An abrupt shoulder. And they would take a fairly large load. Haven't tried this. Let's find out if they'll take a baseball. Oh, easily. Yes. So these would be jumbo cups. This is usually the key as the, let's say, the drawing line, the dividing line. If it'll take a baseball, it's a jumbo cup. But you'll notice that when you put the ball on top of it, it looks like it's just a little bit too big to fit it because of the way that it's elevated up there and you have that narrow top there. Now, let's see. These cups here are all phony Palafox cups. They're copies that were made in Germany or Italy or England, various countries. The Palafox design and the Rings and Things Monte Cup design are the 2 most often duplicated designs in cups and balls. You see more copies of those than you do any other cup. And the reason is that the Palafox design has a characteristic. Now, I think this will work with this cup. That lacrosse ball fits in there perfectly, but when you put it on top, it looks like it's way too big for that cup. That's the whole reason that Palafox designed that cup, was to get that illusion of the ball that was too big to fit into it. And that design just won't go away. In fact, Magic Makers and Penguin are still making them. Rings and Things 2, RNT2 Magic, actually re-registered the Palafox trademark that Jeff Busby used to use. And they issued several sets of Palafox Cups as well. I'll show you some of those in just a moment. Over here are the cups from Alke van Dokkum. This is the Monster Cup. These cups weigh 4 pounds, 4 ounces each. They're probably the heaviest cups I've ever seen. And they will take this 5-inch load ball as a final load without any difficulty. Of course, they're not easy to manipulate. You can barely pick them up like this. In fact, I can't. My fingers are too slippery, but Alke can. He uses the same design for all of his cups, though, with the exception of his traditional cups. There's the Monster Cup. This is the Micro Cup. This cup will take a very small ball. Look at the difference in the size. But they're identical. If I blew a photograph of this up to that size, you would see exactly the same thing you see here. He does this on what they call a CNC machine. CNC means computer numeric control. It's a technique for cutting metal. And the steps in making a CNC cup work like this. You start with a block of metal. Then you cut the inside with a cutter. So you get the inside of the cup. Then you turn that piece around in the lathe and you cut the outside. After you've done that, then the real work starts, because you have to polish it until it looks like that. That takes a lot of hand work, and that's why the CNC cups do cost as much as they do. Spinning is a little different process. With spinning, you have a block that looks something like this. The cup is spun to that shape, then the ridges are added and the mouth bead is rolled. It's spun from a disc. I'll give you an example. These are from James Reiser. He starts off with a disc of copper, which he puts into the spinning machine. Now the spinning machine is like a lathe. It has a pressure plate, which would be this thing, and it has a form, which would be this thing. And that mashes this against that. Then you use what they call a spoon or a roller to shape it. Now you don't roll it all at once. If you do, you get splits. Instead, you roll about this much of it. Then you take it out of the machine and you anneal it. You heat it up and allow it to cool very slowly. That relieves any stresses in the metal. The next step brings the piece of metal to this shape. After that, you bring it down to the point where you're going to make your shoulder bead. Then you form the shoulder bead. Then you roll the edge and you polish it. And you're a third of the way through. When you get through, you'll have this. So that's how the cups are made.
How long does that process normally take when you make cups?
Well, since you're doing probably, let's say, 50 or 60 sets at once, let's say a minimum of 25 sets at once, it wouldn't take as much per cup as it would if you were just doing one set. But you figure there's probably about maybe 5 or 6 hours of work in each individual cup. That's especially if you know what you're doing. If you don't, then
Takes even longer.
the sky's the limit, yes. Up in here are various leather chop cups. Most of these are chop cups in this area. And then those are some bowls and chop cups and things. Some of those are not actually part of the museum, but they fill an empty space. Here's a rare cup. These are cups by Bertini. They have no shoulder bead. Instead, they have a large mouth bead that serves the purpose. He also did make standard cups. His standard cups look like this, because that's what they are. Very nice old traditional cups. By the way, I keep using the term traditional cups. That refers to cups with a straight side instead of cups with a curved side.
Which
like
is the
way
way that,
over here.
like the street performers would use.
Yes, the street performers generally use those. Now, nowadays, street performers use a big cup that has a lot of capacity. For instance, here's a street performer's cup right here. This is a riser jumbo. In fact, this cup was at one time the property of Gazzo. Here is a riser street performer's cup. It's a very heavy cup, weighs about, I'd say, 12, 14 ounces. And it will take a very large ball. I don't know if it'll take a softball. Let's find out. Ooh, yeah, cool. So this is what they look for. One of the reasons you want a heavy cup when you're doing street work is if you're producing baby chicks, you don't want the cup to walk around with the table with you. Although that can be very funny. Now over here, we have some more. Up on the top shelf are cups that are just a little bit too big to put into the regular shelves. These are some cups by Ickle Pickle called Les Jambos. Didn't make many of them. These are the Michael Lee Millennium cups. And then these are some other large cups by various makers, Roy Cooper's, some other things like that. These are various sets of cups, the JES Magic cups, the Sisti cups, the Michael Amar cups, right there. And these cups here are all cups that were designed by Gary Animal, who was one of Gazzo's partners in MagicPitch.com. These cups are very heavy metal, and some of them, there's only a few sets of these very tall cups like this. For instance, he only made 5 or 6 sets. These are made of copper, heavy copper, which is twice as thick. Some of them are brass, and then some of them are made of a metal called gild metal. This is a heavy, stiff metal that looks very much like brass, except that it's a little bit more orange looking. It's used for the jackets of artillery shells. Very handy thing for keeping your lead together, I suppose. Down here are cups by R&T2. I think I have more of these than I do any other manufacturer. There's about 50 sets of cups from them. Everything from the smallest chop cups made to some of the largest street performing cups. And lots of chop cups. They made a whole series of cups based on the Don Allen design. There's this is a Don Allen stainless steel with a bronze liner. And then this is a Don Allen stubby copper. And let's see, I think one of these this is a 50th anniversary Don Allen chop cup that was made for Mike Brazel, who was one of the owners of the company. And this is one that was made specifically for me. It has my name engraved on it right in here. It's hard to see because the metal is so shiny. But these are really nice cups. And the nice part about it is instead of having to bang them on the table like you normally do with a chop cup to get the balls to release, the release is almost automatic if you do it a certain way. I'll show you how that happens. Okay, so you've got the ball in there. Watch. Just a 1-inch drop from the table. Anyway, so that's what they did with those. And They reissued the Monty Cups. They reissued all the combo cups. They have some very nice miniature cups. They have they made some cups out of a material called Delrin, which is an industrial strength plastic. This is almost impossible to break. It can be done, but it's very difficult. It's they're very, very sturdy. And these will take a golf ball. Then you have the Palafox minis. This is in antique bronze. Looks like a miniature Palafox cup. Very nice little cups. They will handle a handball. And of course, all the Monty Cups. Then he reissued the Palafox Cups. His Palafox Cups turned out very nice. Had some minor problems with them at first, but once he got the hang of it, he was making some beautiful Palafox Cups. That's a real nice cup. And I have to say that Jake has been putting out some very good cups. There are some real good cup manufacturers right now. James Reiser, Rings RNT2, Brett Sherwood. Those are the guys who consistently put out good quality. I hope that Gary Animal, also known as Gary Knights, gets back into the business because he made some of the best street performing cups that were around. They were heavy, heavy metal, so you could give them some real problems, some real, just pound them. You could just give them all sorts of beating and they would hold up. In fact, this is one of Gary's own personal cups. You can see how it's been beat on, and there's still no real denting on it. So that's just they were built by a street performer for street performing. Down here are magic set cups. Almost all of these are plastic. Then over here are some of the older magic set cups. Some of these are quite rare. These are a set of Sherm's magic set cups that only a couple of sets of these are known to be around. And then there's the standard Sherms. Then there were even some plastic ones. There's a lot of Adams cups here. In fact, you won't even see a set of these in the Sherm's book, and you won't see a set of those in the Adams book. But they're legitimately made by those people. And plenty of shell games, lots of them. Everything from little tiny ones all the way up to the trade show shells that are produced by School for Scoundrels. And then up here you have, these are all cups that are, you would consider basically your knockoff cups. Let me get these things out of the way here. Now the fact that they are copies of existing cups is not necessarily a reflection on the quality. Some of these are very good cups, and certainly you could use them to earn a living if you needed a set of cups. But for instance, you have all of these cups from India here that are basically copies of the Monty cups. You have these cups, which are similar to some of the old Morrissey cups. They're not quite the same. These are made by Bazar de Magia in Argentina. They're good value for the money. And then over here you have cups that are made by magic makers, and these are really not bad cups for the money. They're fairly inexpensive. They're basically a large version of a Palafox cup, and of course they have used that design for a lot of theirs. These are their new strolling cups, and there's their miniature cups that were so popular for a while. These are all found cups. These are cups that were made from cups that were intended for other purposes. These little shot glasses here lend themselves very well to a bizarre shell game or cups and balls presentation. Some of these old cups from India that you would find at Pier 1, they're great for cups and balls. These are shot glasses from Target. I saw these on eBay. I ordered them and it turned out they were little gold painted flower pots. There's some guy on eBay that's selling these as practice cups. I didn't buy those on eBay. I recognized them as what they are. Votive candle holders. Got them at Walmart for 99 cents. These are miniature Jefferson cups made in pewter by Kirk Stife. And then, of course, regular Jefferson cups. And then here's some antique French cups that I picked up off eBay just a few weeks ago. Notice they have a shoulder bead and a recessed bottom. So it's amazing. You can find all sorts of interesting things that you can do the cups and balls with. In fact, after the war, I'm referring to World War II now, not any of the more recent ones. they were making these traveling sets for people to take around to, when they were on the train, to use as a bar. Conradi actually took some of those, removed one cup from the set of 4, and they became traveling cups and balls sets. This little edge here gives you enough just to use a mouth bead, use it as a kind of a combination shoulder bead and mouth bead, and you could use a little piece of sponge for the ball. That packs up in a nice little barrel. Those are from Canada. So anyway, there's a wide range of things here at the Cups and Balls Museum. Something for every taste, something for every application. My main recommendation to anybody who's getting into just doing the cups and balls is to first find a decent set, not necessarily expensive, that has enough weight and heft that they don't blow off your table when you're working outdoors, that will take a decent size load, and then learn how to do. I would recommend that you learn the Vernon routine first. Once you've learned the Vernon routine, you have the basis for a cups and balls routine. That's the basis of Bob Reed's penultimate cups and balls. It's also partially the basis of Gazzo's routine. Once you figure out what kind of cups and balls you want to do, then get a really good set of those cups and do them justice. It's not a bad idea to buy a decent prop. It's like playing a musical instrument. When I first started playing the guitar and the banjo, there were all sorts of instruments available. For about $89 you could get a cheap guitar. For about $350 or $400 back then you could get a good solid professional instrument. For $2,000 or $3,000 you could get a very ornate, engraved, inlaid, souped up instrument that everybody would say, boy, that guy must be good, look how fancy his guitar or his banjo is. And the cups are a lot like that. You can start off with just some nice light metal cups. I would recommend copper for your first set. They've got a little heft to them. You're not going to have any problems with reflection of the ball in your hand when you reach over in front of it. That's important. The patina on the cup will cut that out. Later on, you might want to get something like a set of Sherwoods. Get the finest you can afford. It pays for itself.
Now, of course, with the cups and balls, you have to use a magic wand as well. I understand you have some wands here too?
I have a couple. Let me step out and get the 2 that I took outside. These cups are a set of 25th anniversary Monty cups from Rings and Things. Now, Encore Magic had purchased the rights to Rings and Things. These were done by Chris Riesman. They include silver-plated cups, a wand, and a set of balls. This was number 25 in the run. There was going to be a run of 50 sets. These belonged at one time to John Wright, who's a magician out of Ohio. But John disposed of his collection, and I was the lucky guy who got these. They're quite rare. There's another set, though, that I think you'd really want to see. So if you'll put that on pause there, I'll bring it out. No camera trickery was used to make this change. These are the Victory Cups made by Colin Rose. These are actually made from one of the timbers of the HMS Victory, which is the oldest commissioned ship in the Royal Navy. The timbers are over 200 years old. The matching wand is in a box that has a piece of the exterior of one of the timbers on it. The tips of the wand are made from the copper cladding of the vessel, as are the nameplates here and on the bottom of the wand box. Now there's a kind of an arrow looking thing right here. That's called the crow's foot. It's the king's mark that meant that at the time this was the property of the king, because the king did own the entire Navy. Of course he paid the bill, so it worked out all right. There's only one set of these that has the matching box, and they're made by Colin Rose's 5 of Hearts Magic. He even furnished a pack of Lord Nelson playing cards to go with that, made by Piatnik of Vienna.
So it's quite a rare set, the only one of its kind in the world.
The only one that has all of the
complete set.
The goodies with it, yeah. That's exactly right.
Let's take a look at some of the wands.
Okay. Well, over here, here's an interesting setup. These cups belong to Gazo. They're a set of Palafox Chick cups. These have actually been thrown into the ocean by an irritated biker. He mentions that in one of his books. This is the way that Gazo's wand looks. It's a drumstick covered with electrical tape. You can tell that he beat on these things a lot. There's a little scratch right there. Now, going from the ridiculous to the sublime, here's a wand by Thomas Wayne. Silver, ivory, abalone, and ebony. And it takes apart for convenient storage. It comes with a leather carrying case, but I have that in my box of leather carrying cases. Now we can step over here to the wand collection and take a look at a few of the highlights. I think the real rare ones are in this box here. Here's another one by Thomas Wayne. It has the theater masks in it, the comedy and tragedy. They're done in ivory, and there's brass inlaid to band it off a bit. This is a custom wand by James Reiser. I had him make these for me to use with the Sherwood Cups. And they're made in such a way that if you lie this on a flat surface, these bands do not actually touch the tabletop. They're silver and ebony. And then here's some wands by Joe Porper. These unscrew in the middle. And here's a very nice one from Joe Porper. This one has ivory ends and a little inlaid dot in it. And the shank is probably ebony, although it could be Catalan. It doesn't matter. It's an exquisite wand. But Joe and Thomas Wayne make some of the nicest wands around. But I have lots and lots and lots of wands. I've had people from all over the world make them for me. In fact, one of our members here, Robert Campos, has made a couple of wands for me as well.
And those are all in your drawers?
They're all in my drawers there, which makes it difficult to walk sometimes. But these are...
Well, I think in order to finish our tour of the museum, it would only be appropriate if you would be so kind to perhaps give us a demonstration.
I'll be glad to do that. Let me put some of my toys away, and then we'll come back to this table over here. I'm going to present one of the oldest tricks in all of magic for you, a trick that goes back to the ancient Egyptians, to the year 4500 BPOE, that's before pants or anything. It was originally played with 3 cups and 3 balls. They placed the 3 balls on the ground or on the table. They'd put a cup on top of each one of them and make the balls jump from one cup to another. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It was boring. Sometimes, just for variety, they go forth and back, or to and fro, which are 6. Now, in Europe, it was played with walnut shells and a pea. They'd put the pea on the table, put a shell on top of it, put 2 shells next to it, move them around, and you guess which shell the pea was under. At Texas A&M, they do it this way. I'm going to change it up just a little bit. 1 cup, 1 ball, 2 hands, a heart of gold, and a wax mustache. Now, here's the way it works. The ball goes into the cup. I rattle it about like this. I do this. I take it out, put it in my pocket. I have to get it out of my pocket and back under the cup without you seeing it go. Do you understand the simple rules of the game? Say yes.
Yes.
Good. Then we'll start. Now, maybe I'm working a little fast for you. I'll slow down a bit. The ball goes into the cup. I rattle it around like this, then I do this. Now you have to guess where it is. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I didn't see anything in his hand when he stuck it in his pocket, so it must be under the cup. No, it's not. It is in my pocket. But if you thought even for a second that it was in my pocket, it would have been under the cup. You can't win because I cheat. It's my job. I'll do it again. This time no pocket because that confuses you. The ball goes into the cup. I rattle it around like this. Now I hold it over here. Now I can't cheat. When I wiggle my thumb like this, the ball dwindles to the size of a subatomic particle. I've got millions of them. I got them real cheap at a Super Collider garage sale near Waxahachie. I do this, the ball goes right through the top of the cup. Now that ball hits the top of the table right here. There's a switch under there that triggers an electronic circuit that operates a big coil that goes around the edge of the table. That coil activates, causing that little ball to spin wildly upon its axis. When it does that, the ball expands instantly to its original size and shape, just like that. You're not buying this, I can tell. Actually, I use an extra ball. It's a big yellow smiley face ball, see? The funny thing is that you'd think that I could get 2 of those in there, but I can't because, see, there's not enough room. The other ball takes up too much space.
Wonderful. Bill, thank you very much.
Sure.
Well, it's been a wonderful opportunity and a great afternoon to spend here at the Cups and Balls Museum. I thank you very much for your time and for showing us around. Any final words, James?
Well, no, first, thanks very much for coming out and looking at the collection. I enjoy showing it to people, especially people who understand what the cups and balls are about. In fact, I wish I had 4 hours to just take you through and say, now this is a prototype by so-and-so, and this is this, and this is that. And there's just not enough time, and of course, a lot of this will be edited out in the final process. But all I can say is the cups and balls, it's a wonderful trick. It has everything to offer in it. There's basically every possible magical effect can be done in the cups and balls in some context or another. And it's, of course, what I have here is not just a collection, it's an illness. But the people that I've met through the cups and balls, the stories that I've picked up, the things I've learned about how they were made, and the detective work that I've been able to do have given me a real education in this, and I enjoy learning more stuff because the more I learn about it, the more I realize that I have to learn yet.
Well, certainly this is not just an illness, but a contagious disease, because I believe other people, once they see this, will want to start collecting them as well, because I believe all of us have at least 2 or 3 sets at home. And it is a fundamental trick once you learn the cups and balls. I mean, that's a basic kind of a thing I think people should learn. That, the linking rings, a few other things that seem to be basics, but you have the sleight of hand that's involved with the cups and balls and so many different moves. So I think it is a fundamental effect that certainly is exactly what it is. It's classic.
That's true, and I think it's ironic that of all of the quotes about the cups and balls that we know, Houdini said that a man is not really a magician until he's mastered the cups and balls. Yet there's no record of Houdini ever actually having performed that in public.
Well, again, Bill, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Again, we've really enjoyed it, and I hope everyone, all the viewers, also have learned quite a bit about the cups and balls. Don't forget the website,
www.cupsandballsmuseum.com.
We hope you visit on. Good day.